$50 million. That is allegedly how much Meghan Markle and Prince Harry pocketed from Netflix, and right now every single cent of that deal is hanging by a thread as her latest project faces what insiders are calling a make-or-break moment at Sundance. The Duchess of Sussex thought she had finally cracked the code to Hollywood stardom with her cameo in Cookie Queens, but sources are now revealing that producers are watching the festival reception with bated breath, ready to make a brutal decision that could see Meghan cut from the final film entirely. And folks, before you think this is just another tabloid exaggeration, let me be crystal clear about what is at stake here. Prince Harry himself has money invested in this project. Real money. Their money. This is not some casual red carpet appearance or a favor for a friend. This is a desperate financial gamble that could determine whether the Sussex Hollywood dream survives or dies a very public death. The pressure cooker atmosphere at Sundance is unlike anything the couple has faced before. Industry insiders are watching not just to see how the film performs, but to gauge whether Meghan's presence adds value or actively damages the project's commercial prospects. One source close to the production put it bluntly, saying the conversation has already happened about what to do if her involvement proves toxic to potential distributors. Let that sink in for a moment. We are talking about a woman who gave up her position in the British royal family, one of the most prestigious positions on the planet, supposedly to pursue her entertainment career, and now producers are openly discussing whether having her in a film is good or bad for business. The irony is absolutely staggering when you consider how Meghan positioned herself just a few short years ago. She was going to be the one who changed Hollywood. She was going to produce groundbreaking content. She was going to be a force for change in the industry. Instead, she is now clinging to a non-speaking cameo in an independent film, praying that festival audiences do not reject her so completely that editors reach for the digital scissors. Sources familiar with the situation say the couple showed up at Sundance not to celebrate the art of independent cinema, but to protect their investment and gauge whether there is any possibility of salvaging this venture. But the financial doom surrounding this single project is just the beginning of what is unraveling behind the scenes, and the pattern of failure following the Sussexes has become impossible to ignore. The timing of this Sundance crisis could not be more devastating for brand Sussex, coming as it does on the heels of what can only be described as a catastrophic reception for Meghan's Netflix cooking show. With Love, Meghan was supposed to be her triumphant return to the spotlight, a warm and fuzzy lifestyle program that would remind the world of her charm and relatability. Instead, industry analysts have declared it incredibly unpopular by Netflix metrics, with viewership numbers that sources describe as embarrassingly low for a project with this much marketing muscle behind it. The streaming giant reportedly pushed the show aggressively, gave it premium placement, and watched in horror as audiences collectively shrugged and clicked on something else. This is not an isolated incident, and that is what makes the current situation so dire for the couple. Every single Sussex venture seems to be collapsing at the same time, creating a perfect storm of professional failure that even their most dedicated defenders cannot spin into something positive. The Spotify deal ended in disaster, with one executive famously calling them grifters. The Netflix documentary generated controversy, but failed to translate into the ongoing content partnership the couple desperately needed. Archwell, their foundation, has reportedly been gutted down to a skeleton crew, and now both their cooking show and their film project are facing devastating reception. Industry insiders are speaking with increasing candor about what went wrong, and their analysis is brutal. One entertainment executive who spoke on condition of anonymity said Hollywood wanted to embrace the Sussexes when they first arrived. There was genuine excitement about what they could bring to the table, but the couple seemed to believe that their titles alone would guarantee success without putting in the actual work that this industry demands. Another source added that the fundamental problem is that nobody trusts them anymore. Every project feels like a vehicle for their personal brand rather than something audiences actually want to watch. Here is where it gets particularly interesting and particularly painful for Meghan specifically. Multiple sources are now confirming that Hollywood insiders have drawn a clear distinction between the two Sussexes, and it is not flattering for the Duchess. The word on the street is that industry players do not want Meghan at events, but they absolutely do want Prince Harry. His royal pedigree, his connection to the British throne, his military service, and yes, even his complicated family drama, all make him a valuable commodity in entertainment circles. Meghan, on the other hand, is increasingly viewed as a liability, who brings controversy without corresponding commercial value. The real reason Harry and Meghan showed up at Sundance will absolutely shock you when you understand the desperation driving their every move. Let us talk about money, because that is ultimately what this entire saga comes down to. Prince Harry has significant financial investment in Cookie Queens, and this is not some pocket change we are discussing. Sources close to the situation reveal that the couple poured money into this production specifically because they believed it represented Meghan's best chance at legitimate Hollywood credibility. The investment was supposed to be smart, strategic, a way to ensure she had a seat at the table when the film hopefully became a festival darling. Instead, they are now facing the very real possibility of watching that money evaporate while simultaneously watching Meghan get cut from the project entirely. This pattern of Harry investing in Meghan's ventures only to watch them fail spectacularly has become almost tragically predictable at this point. Remember her jam line? American Riviera Orchard was supposed to be a lifestyle brand empire, complete with products that would fly off shelves and establish Meghan as a domestic goddess for the Instagram age. Harry reportedly supported the venture enthusiastically, believing in his wife's vision. The result? Sources describe the reception as tepid at best, with the much-hyped preserves becoming fodder for mockery rather than a foundation for a business empire. The jams were sent to celebrities and influencers, many of whom reportedly had no idea what to do with them or why they should care. The Sundance appearance was not, as some outlets suggested, a glamorous night out for the Hollywood-adjacent couple. Those familiar with their thinking say they attended specifically to protect their financial interests, hovering near the project to gauge reaction and potentially influence how the film gets marketed. One insider put it in terms that are almost painful in their bluntness, saying they are hoping they are going to get a return, a refund, whatever you want to call it. They need this to work because they have real money on the line, and the Netflix show was already a disaster. Allow me to translate what that really means. The Sussexes, who positioned themselves as billionaires in waiting when they left the royal family, are apparently sweating over the potential loss on a single independent film investment. The couple who was supposed to have Hollywood at their feet is now nervously watching festival reactions and praying that audiences do not hate Meghan's cameo so much that she gets edited out entirely. For a woman who once commanded global attention simply by existing, this represents a fall from grace that would have seemed unimaginable just a few years ago. But the filmmakers have a devastating decision to make, and sources say the conversations happening behind closed doors are absolutely brutal. Here is the cold, hard reality of how Hollywood actually works, and it is a lesson Meghan Markle is apparently learning in the most painful way possible. Industry insiders are now confirming that producers have had explicit conversations about what happens if Meghan's presence proves not good for business. The answer is simple and ruthless. She gets cut. It is not personal, one source explained with a matter-of-fact tone that is almost chilling. It is purely financial. If distributors indicate that having her in the film will hurt sales or streaming deals, she is out. Festival reception will tell us everything we need to know. Let that sink in for a moment. A former working member of the British royal family, a woman who had the world at her feet, is now facing the very real possibility of being edited out of an independent film because her presence is considered commercially toxic. The woman who claimed she left royal life because she could not bear the constraints on her freedom is now learning that Hollywood has its own constraints, and they are far less forgiving than anything Buckingham Palace ever imposed. At least the royals would not literally cut you out of family photos. The situation becomes even more awkward when you consider the other talent involved in Cookie Queens. Lily Collins, who is one of the film's actual leads, has been noticeably quiet about Meghan's involvement. Sources close to the production suggest that Collins and other cast members were not exactly thrilled about having the Duchess steal headlines at the premiere. One insider noted that there was definitely tension about how the media coverage would shake out. The film has real actors doing real work, and nobody wanted the story to become all about Meghan's cameo rather than the actual movie. This is the brutal reality of Hollywood business decisions that Meghan apparently failed to understand when she made her grand exit from royal life. In this industry, you are only as valuable as your last project. Your title means nothing if you cannot deliver audiences. Your connections mean nothing if you are radioactive to advertisers and distributors. The entertainment business is fundamentally transactional, and right now the transaction is not looking favorable for the Duchess of Sussex. Producers will cut their losses without a second thought if the numbers do not add up. And everything suggests the numbers are not adding up. And Meghan's so-called return to acting is not even what she claimed it was, which makes this entire situation even more pathetic. Let us be brutally honest about what Meghan actually announced when she proclaimed her triumphant return to acting. She positioned it as a major career moment, a significant step in her professional journey, a signal that Hollywood Meghan was back and ready to reclaim her rightful place in the entertainment industry. The reality? It is a non-speaking cameo where she plays herself. That is it. No character, no dialogue, no actual acting. She shows up as Meghan Markle, stands around for a few moments, and that is supposedly her big comeback. Sources with direct knowledge of the production have confirmed this devastating detail with absolute certainty. One insider stated flatly that there are no lines. "I know that for a fact. She is just herself. It is barely a cameo in the traditional sense." For someone who spent years building a career as an actress, who starred in over 100 episodes of a successful legal drama, who was supposed to return to entertainment as a powerhouse producer and performer, This represents an almost unfathomable come-down. She cannot even get a speaking role in an independent film that her husband invested money in. The timing of Meghan's announcement tells you everything you need to know about her priorities and her media strategy. She chose to reveal her return to acting during the same period when Prince William was generating positive headlines for his Earthshot prize work in Rio. Coincidence? Not according to royal watchers who have observed her pattern of timing announcements to compete with or undermine positive coverage of the working royals. One commentator noted that it is textbook Meghan. She cannot stand when William or Kate get good press, so she drops something to change the narrative. The problem is that people have figured out the playbook. This pattern of stunted casting represents Meghan's genuinely diminishing Hollywood status in a way that no amount of PR spin can disguise. She went from series regular on a popular television show to silent cameo playing herself in an independent film. She went from being courted by studios to being questioned by producers about whether her presence helps or hurts a project. She went from having options to having what appears to be a single desperate gamble on a Sundance premiere. The trajectory is not just disappointing, it is devastating. The authenticity problem at the heart of this failure runs much deeper than any single film or television project. Here is the fundamental issue that the Sussexes have never been able to solve, and it is destroying everything they touch. Authenticity, or rather their complete and utter lack of it. The Cookie Queen's problems are not an isolated incident. They are a symptom of a much larger disease that has infected brand Sussex from the very beginning. Every project they touch feels manufactured, calculated, designed to serve their personal agenda rather than to genuinely connect with audiences. And people can tell. Viewers are not stupid. They can sense when they are being sold something fake, and they are rejecting it in droves. With Love, Meghan was supposed to showcase the Duchess as a warm, relatable, down-to-earth hostess who just happens to have famous friends and a gorgeous Montecito mansion. Instead, critics and viewers alike slammed it as appearing inauthentic and hastily put together. The perfectly staged settings, the celebrity guest appearances, the carefully curated casualness, all of it screamed performance rather than genuine connection. One reviewer noted that watching Meghan pretend to spontaneously make jam with her famous friends was more exhausting than entertaining. Another pointed out that the entire show felt like a vanity project disguised as lifestyle content. Industry experts have been remarkably blunt about what went wrong. One source paraphrased the core problem perfectly, saying authenticity is the #1 factor in whether lifestyle content succeeds or fails, and it is exactly what they lack. Audiences can forgive a lot. They can forgive production mistakes, awkward moments, even controversial opinions. What they cannot forgive is feeling like they are being manipulated by someone who thinks they are too dumb to notice. And that is precisely the vibe that radiates from every Sussex project. The couple seems genuinely confused about why their content keeps failing, which only makes the problem worse. Sources say they believe their message is good, their intentions are pure, and audiences should appreciate what they are trying to do. The possibility that they themselves might be the problem appears to be completely absent from their analysis. They blame the British media. They blame racism. They blame jealousy. They blame literally anyone and everyone except the two people who are consistently present in every single failure. Even her most famous origin story is now being questioned, and the implications are absolutely devastating for what remains of her credibility. Remember the Procter & Gamble letter story? For those unfamiliar, this has been a cornerstone of Meghan's personal mythology for years. She has told it repeatedly in interviews, presented it as evidence of her lifelong commitment to activism and feminism, and used it to establish herself as someone who has been fighting for change since she was a child. The story goes that young Meghan saw a sex commercial, wrote letters to powerful women and companies, and successfully got the ad changed. It is a great story, inspiring, empowering, the kind of origin story a brand could be built on. There is just one small problem. Serious questions have emerged about whether any of it is actually true. Vanity Fair, hardly a tabloid outlet looking to tear down the Duchess, reportedly had their legal team examine the story back in 2017. The result? According to sources, they struggled to confirm any truth to it. Let that sink in. A major publication with significant resources dedicated time and legal expertise to verifying this foundational Meghan story and came away unable to confirm it happened. This is not some anonymous internet claim. This is professional journalists at a respected outlet raising serious red flags. Here is where it gets even more suspicious. Meghan claims she wrote to Hillary Clinton, Gloria Allred, and journalist Linda Ellerby as part of this letter-writing campaign. These are prominent, powerful women who keep records, who have archives, who would almost certainly remember and cherish a letter from a young girl that contributed to a successful activist campaign. Yet not a single one of these letters has ever been produced. Not one of these women has ever publicly confirmed receiving correspondence from young Meghan. And perhaps most tellingly, none of these powerful women have maintained any kind of relationship with the adult Meghan, despite her global fame and supposed shared values. The absence of evidence is not proof of falsehood, of course, but it is deeply strange that a story Meghan has told so frequently, one that forms such a crucial part of her personal brand, cannot be verified and is not supported by any of the supposedly involved parties. Critics have noted that if the story were true, these letters would be incredibly valuable artifacts. Meghan's team would have every incentive to produce them, to display them, to use them as proof of her lifelong commitment to the causes she claims to champion. Body language experts have analyzed her telling of this story with conclusions that are absolutely devastating. Specialists who study nonverbal communication have examined multiple instances of Meghan recounting the Procter & Gamble letter story, and their analysis suggests something troubling. According to these experts, her delivery contains numerous markers typically associated with rehearsed rather than recalled narratives. The story is told with almost identical phrasing each time. The emotional beats land at precisely the same moments, and certain details that would naturally vary in genuine recollection remain suspiciously consistent across tellings. One analyst noted that authentic memories tend to shift slightly in how they are expressed. People remember different details at different times, emphasize different aspects depending on context, and generally show natural variation in repeated tellings. Meghan's Procter & Gamble story, by contrast, plays almost like a scripted performance. The expert suggested this pattern is more consistent with someone reciting a prepared narrative than someone accessing a genuine childhood memory. This is not an isolated incident of questionable storytelling. The Oprah interview alone contained multiple claims that were later contradicted by documentary evidence, contemporaneous accounts, or simple logic. The claim about a secret wedding 3 days before the public ceremony was debunked by the actual officiant. Questions about the timeline of her relationship with Harry raised eyebrows among those familiar with the actual sequence of events. The overall portrait of her time as a working royal has been challenged by numerous sources who were present for the events in question. The pattern extends to seemingly minor details that collectively paint a troubling picture. When Meghan posted a dancing video, she credited her daughter Lily with being behind the camera. Critics immediately noted that the camera work seemed far too professional and steady for a toddler. Small inconsistency, perhaps, but it fits into a larger pattern of claims that do not quite add up, of stories that sound better than reality would support, of a consistent willingness to embellish and exaggerate for effect. The credibility erosion has real-world consequences that Hollywood insiders are now calculating with devastating clarity. Insiders are noticing, and they are talking. The entertainment industry runs on reputation, on trust, on the confidence that someone will deliver what they promise. When that trust erodes, opportunities disappear with shocking speed. Sources say Meghan's credibility issues have become a topic of conversation in meetings where her name comes up for potential projects. Executives ask pointed questions. They want to know if working with her will bring unwanted controversy. They worry about whether claims she makes about her involvement will match reality. They calculate the risk of associating their brands with someone whose truthfulness has been publicly questioned. One industry insider put it in terms that are almost painfully direct. The problem is that nobody knows which Meghan they are going to get. Is she the professional actress who did solid work on Suits? Is she the activist with a compelling personal story? Or is she the person who seems to exaggerate everything and creates drama wherever she goes? That uncertainty is toxic in this business. Studios want predictability. They want to know that their investment is safe. The consequences of this reputation damage are becoming increasingly visible in Meghan's shrinking options. She went from being a working actress with steady employment, to being a duchess with global fame, to being someone who cannot land a speaking role in an independent film. That trajectory does not happen by accident. It reflects a systematic loss of industry confidence that no amount of PR spin can reverse. When producers are openly discussing whether to cut you from a project, you have reached a level of professional toxicity that is extremely difficult to recover from. The deeper question is whether the Sussexes understand how serious this situation has become. Sources suggest they remain convinced that external forces are responsible for their failures, that a coordinated campaign of negativity is preventing audiences from seeing their true value. This lack of self-awareness may be the most damaging element of all. You cannot fix a problem you refuse to acknowledge, and every indication suggests they are nowhere close to acknowledging that they themselves might be the problem. Friends are turning into enemies, and the warning from insiders about what happens if Cookie Queens fails is absolutely chilling. Here is something that should send shivers down Meghan's spine. Multiple sources are now warning that if Cookie Queens bombs at Sundance and beyond, her so-called close personal friends in Hollywood could turn on her with devastating speed. The entertainment industry is famously transactional. Relationships are maintained when they are mutually beneficial and discarded the moment they become liabilities. Meghan has positioned herself as being connected to the highest levels of celebrity culture, but those connections are only as strong as her perceived value, and that value is plummeting by the day. The evidence of friend group erosion is already visible to anyone paying attention. Remember when Meghan tried to associate herself with the Kardashian-Jenner circle? She allegedly posted a birthday tribute to Kris Jenner that used a photograph from a party she was not actually invited to. The response from the Kardashian camp was reportedly icy silence, and Meghan has been conspicuously absent from their orbit ever since. One source noted that you do not recover from that kind of social misstep with that particular family. They have a long memory and they decide who is in and who is out. The Met Gala situation is perhaps even more telling. This is the most exclusive fashion event of the year, the ultimate symbol of celebrity acceptance, the party that everyone who is anyone in entertainment attends. Meghan has reportedly tried for years to secure an invitation. Years. And despite being a duchess, despite her Netflix deal, despite her supposed A-list connections, she has never made the cut. Same story with the Vanity Fair Oscar party, another invitation she has apparently been unable to secure. These are not just snubs. They are market signals about where she actually stands in the Hollywood hierarchy versus where she believes she stands. When Cookie Queens faces its judgment at Sundance, Meghan will discover exactly how conditional her friendships really are. Success in Hollywood means your phone rings. Failure means people are suddenly too busy to take your calls. Sources say the industry is watching this moment with particular interest because it will reveal whether Meghan has any real support base or whether her celebrity relationships are as shallow as critics have suggested. The smart money, unfortunately for her, appears to be on the latter. The bigger question looming over everything is whether there is any path forward at all for the Hollywood dream she sacrificed so much to pursue. So where does this leave Meghan Markle as the Sundance dust settles and reality sets in? The picture is not pretty. We are looking at a perfect storm of failure that seems almost designed to maximize humiliation. Her Netflix show was declared incredibly unpopular. Her film cameo might get cut entirely. Her credibility has been publicly questioned. Her friend circle is shrinking. And her husband, whose royal connections remain her only real calling card, is increasingly viewed as the valuable Sussex, while she is seen as the problematic one. The contrast with her pre-Harry ambitions is almost too painful to contemplate. Before she became the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan was a working actress with a clear career trajectory. She was on a successful television show. She had a popular lifestyle blog. She was building something real, something sustainable, something based on actual work rather than royal association. She gave all of that up, supposedly for love, but also clearly for the opportunities she believed royal status would provide. The calculation was obvious. Become a duchess, leverage that platform into entertainment superstardom, have it all. Instead, she has ended up with less than she started with. No television show, no film career, a failed podcast deal, a cooking show that audiences rejected, a lifestyle brand that became a punchline, and now a Sundance cameo that might not even survive the final edit. The woman who was supposed to be too big for the royal family has discovered that Hollywood does not care about your title. It cares about whether you can deliver, and she has proven repeatedly that she cannot. What happens if Cookie Queens bombs? Sources suggest it could genuinely be the end of Hollywood Meghan as a concept, not because one failure is fatal in entertainment, but because this failure would come on top of so many others. At some point, even the most optimistic industry observer has to acknowledge a pattern. At some point, executives stop taking meetings. At some point, opportunities simply stop appearing. Meghan may be approaching that point faster than she ever imagined possible. Do you think Meghan will ever admit that leaving the royal family destroyed her career dreams? Or will she keep blaming everyone else? The evidence certainly suggests she will find another scapegoat, another external force to blame, another reason why it is not her fault. But the numbers do not lie. The viewership figures do not lie. The shrinking opportunities and cooling relationships and festival anxiety do not lie. Reality has a way of asserting itself, regardless of how much spin you throw at it. Drop your thoughts below. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned. The next video is waiting, and you will not believe what is coming next.